We're talking about a thriller today, which is called Charlotte. It's directed by Georgia Conlan, who also co-wrote with Martin Harwick. Big hit at Fright Fest. Dan is here. We are Boys on Film. My name is Phil. How are you, Dan?
I'm all right. I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Charlotte has run away from home. She seeks refuge with an older man who is at home. She knocks on his door. Through many questionable revelations, she fears that she may have to put herself in danger, more danger, than where she came from. I've read a lot of reviews online. People saying it's really hard to talk about without spoiling anything, which is a really good point, because I know we've mentioned this before with various films, because we don't really want to do too many spoilers on most films generally that we review. With this one particularly, it is very important, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I almost wonder whether we talk about how we thought about it and then we could have a spoiler section, because there's sort of a lot to talk about. But you're right, I always don't want people to know. It's almost like, come back and then watch this bit. Please don't let us spoil it for you, because I think it was the film's real strength.
Yeah. So we've got Dean Kilbey, who plays Roy. He's the ex-con. He's at home. Georgia plays Charlotte, who knocks on his door. I think it really is an interesting story, and I think it's quite a courageous subject matter.
Really courageous. And I think, again, without trying to give too much away, I think it had to be well acted and it had to be done properly. And I think for the fact this is a really low budget film and the actress is Georgia, the director, I was just blown away by how she was kind of able to perform the role and pull off what I thought was a pretty good twist, actually. You know, you start watching a film like this and it's clearly low budget. I mean, I was a post-production student years ago, and I've seen student films and they've got that sort of no score. There is a look to a film like that. And it's not a bad thing. No. But I feel like after 5-10 minutes, you sort of forget, because I was so sort of caught up then in what was going on with the characters and the story that the kind of the low budgetness didn't really do much. Like, it didn't really affect it for me.
No, because it's done well. That's the thing, isn't it? It's done by people that really understand filmmaking and how to kind of tell a story in a really convincing way. You kind of forget all of that stuff. And that's great, I think, because low budget films, there are so many good ones. This is obviously one of those. My jaw was on the floor when the credits were rolling at the end, but partly because of the twist at the end, but also because of the way that the film, you know, was produced, and also the involvement, because you mentioned Georgia Conlan, who's not only the writer, the co-writer, she's director, she's starring in it as the main character, so she's obviously directing herself, which I think is crazy. But also she's responsible for like casting and like production and assistant producer. And her name appeared so many times in the credits, along with Martin's as well. He's obviously
a joy to watch, because like just at the end, having enjoyed the film, and I'm like, yeah, go Georgia, like you did a great job. And it's literally like Georgia, Martin, Georgia, like all the things that they actually achieved. And I assume they filmed this over quite a period of time and have jobs and doing other things in the meantime. Yeah, I just thought it was a really impressive bit of filmmaking for, you know, I think it was about 16 grand. I think they were.
Oh my God. I think they did a crowdfunder, didn't they? I read somewhere, I think it was on that crowdfunder webpage, where they said it was filmed in 2 days, but I don't know whether that was initially they'd filmed like a test run, and then they got the crowdfunding for production costs. And boy, I mean, you could just imagine the cost of these films, even if it's a relatively simple film to produce. I think there's obviously a lot of high costs.
And what's nice is, I think with a lot of these things, it's tempting to kind of say, oh, it was good, but it could have been a short film. Actually, I thought this was more than credible to last for the 90 minutes that it was actually on for. It never felt too long. It never felt like, oh, you could have wrapped this up quickly. I think they really built it to a good point.
There's a good reason for that, because I think there's a lot of involvement from other characters as well. There aren't a lot of characters, but I think we've probably got about maybe 8-10 characters, and it does focus on the other characters as well as Charlotte and Roy.
I could have skipped some of the office scenes, if I'd be really honest.
I liked those.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go then.
I thought they added like comedy to it, because it's a very dark subject matter.
Because I just didn't like the two. There was the two kind of male colleague like office characters, and they were just obnoxiously like awful.
Oh, I like that. I like those characters.
I could have done without them. And I feel like those are probably the weakest bits of the film for me. But then I think because I was so sort of caught up in the obviously the house stuff. Yeah. What I would say about that scene generally, and thinking about it now, they are a great misdirection because it completely threw me. Thinking about who that character was, how she related to the kind of parents at the beginning. Yeah, that sort of third act. I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, like we're talking about completely different things here. So I'd say it was probably my least favorite part, but it had a really kind of useful device, I guess.
I think that comedy was needed because I think tonally, if it had been dark all the way through, I mean, I can put up with that because obviously I'm into thrillers and horrors anyway, so I can stomach that. But I think it gave a little bit of lightness to it, which I quite liked. I thought it was quite necessary, and also it was a bit playful. So it kind of, I liked that balance, but there are some really interesting characters. I mean, you got that wayward kid, Chloe, who I think is played by Angel May Webb, and there's a kind of like quite sassy guy who was part of the sidekick team, which was
I quite liked them. They were quite of an interesting dynamic. Like they were sort of a bit mean girls, but again, they had bullies, a little bit
of bullies.
Even like the fact that he in the end was just like, "Oh, drop it! Like you're being a bitch." Like
he came out with some hilarious lines though. I was lolling because I thought, okay, well maybe I'm not meant to be, but I was obviously because the lines were funny. But in that situation, it's almost like I don't know, not tragic comedy, but like you're kind of laughing at to give yourself a bit of a break from the dark stuff.
For a low budget film, there were no actors. Where I'm like, oh, I'm a bit embarrassed for you. Like, oh, your performance was clearly like, they hired like the tea lady to come in and do a couple of lines because they couldn't find anyone. Everyone put in, I think, a lot of really like good performances, a lot of effort, a lot of like care to the whole thing.
Yeah,
I just felt like it was built with a lot of passion.
Yeah. Yeah, and understanding, these were clearly filmmakers that really knew how to put that story across because it's a difficult subject matter. Roy, the ex-con Roy, is living at home on his own, and initially you would think, okay, well, a girl tapping on his door who's trying to escape from problems that she's facing in this story, initially, you think, okay, well, I don't know whether I entirely believe that, but I did because she's obviously running away from a troubled experience as well. So you can kind of understand that. And going into his house and he's clearly looking after her initially, you would think.
Again, it's like, I do wonder whether at some point we're going to sort of start to go really into spoilers because I again, like what I'm going to say will spoil the film, so maybe people just need to stop watching at this point.
You fun sponge.
Yeah, I know. I want people to enjoy this for like because not having any idea. I have no idea what this is about. I just went into it thinking, okay, I'll give this a watch, and it was much more fun because of it. What I liked about his character was, I think, with a Hollywood film, they would try and signpost really early on that he's not a good guy, but actually, I thought that initially, like, it's credible why she's there, like, and it's credible how he responds, like the way he goes about it, which is, look, I'll do this, but you can't tell anyone. Like that makes sense. Like it's logical, and he's got a bit of a warmth to him initially, and it's not like, oh, he's going to do the like soap hug where he's going to hug her and there's going to be like an evil face or an evil eyebrow or something. Like he genuinely at first think, oh, okay, he's a good guy. She's running from something else that's sinister and awful. And then obviously that is all then completely tipped on its head later on. But again, it's quite subtly done. And over time, you're like, oh, I'm liking him less and less as this goes on.
Yeah. He was great as well. Dean Kilbey. I think he's a comedian, stand-up, isn't he? Stand-up comedian.
Really good. Really good. I mean, that's not a pleasant role to play.
No. That got me thinking as well, because I was thinking, when people take on these roles that, on paper you would think, okay, I'm not sure whether I want to play this because people might think I'm genuinely like that in real life. Yeah. Which I think is quite a brave thing to do because it's a challenge as well. I'm sure a lot of actors would love, they would embrace that challenge.
Yeah, because he got to do a proper range of emotions. I felt like he had to sort of tap into that initial, this guy's a rescuer. This guy's going to be the one that's going to help her out with whatever's going on in the background. And for that not to be the case, I just think they all just did a really good job. And again, if we are talking spoilers, I just think Georgia Conlan is phenomenal in this. And the whole twist of the film completely hinges on her acting ability. Because obviously we were talking about watching this and potentially speaking to Georgia at some point, and I was just thinking, it's going to be a weird interview because she must only be about 12 years old.
Yeah.
Is she a child prodigy? Has she like done filmmaking since she was like a kid? And
this is the thing.
is this like a Rebecca
It's such
Black
an interesting.
scenario where, like,
it's such an interesting thing to talk about because that's what blew my mind. You look at her in that role and you are totally convinced that is a child.
Yeah.
Like, she seems very smart, but I think a lot of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds are like that. Yeah. So I don't think that there were no moments where I thought, I don't believe that this is a child. And I'm guessing she's late 20s in real life.
I think she maybe is like 24, 25. We can obviously, if we speak to her, we can ask. But
clearly, with the makeup and everything, like, I mean, I don't think there was much makeup. She was very stripped back, but
that's the weird thing about it. And it was never suspension of disbelief. It was just watching a teenager, and then all of a sudden she just wasn't. And it was through a bit of costume, a hairstyle, and some contact lenses. And it's like, how did you do that without CGI? Like, I just thought that, you could never redo this film because it all hinges on her ability to completely shapeshift.
And I have to say, if you've seen her pictures of her, like, I checked out her Instagram, I don't think for 1 minute that she looks, like a 12-year-old for 1 minute.
Well, even in the film where you suddenly realise who she is and what, the twist is, it is still like watching two characters. And they show the progression from her changing into younger Charlotte, and it's just like, I still can't see that person over here. I think it's so unique because I don't know whether she realized that she could pull off this look, and did that lead to her thinking, I can make a film out of this, or was it like, hey, I'll give this a go and I'll see if I can de-age? And it just worked so well. I think it really did make the film work. Like, it all rested on that.
We're bearing that in mind as well. I sound like I'm going to contradict myself, but also at the tender age of 24, and I'm not saying she's young and impressionable by any means, because clearly this film proves that she is a very smart filmmaker. But I think that's incredible. The amount of roles that she had playing, not just performing, but obviously, like I say, behind the scenes that you don't really see. You clearly see the filmmaking skills, but it's only when the credits roll and you realise to what extent she's...
Yeah. I mean, I want to know her story. I just want to know where did she start doing this? Because she must have been filmmaking.
I've just come across a YouTube clip of her singing about 13 years ago in a talent competition. So she's obviously got a lot of talents going on there. It's like, even that pick one of many.
That was like the final part of the credits, which made me just like, oh my God, when like they went through all the technical roles and then it just said score, and it was like a song sung by Conlan. And I'm like, well, that's also her then, right? So she was also singing in the score.
It's crazy.
She's just one of those probably just horribly talented people. But I think her acting was just top notch. Like, again, for the fact that this was a low budget film, that was not a low budget performance. I just think it sold it.
So Martin Hardwick should give a lot of credit to him as well, because he's obviously co-written this screenplay, and I think he did the music as well. He did the score. Right, that's right, as I remember. And he amongst other things, I mean, it's very hands-on, both of them together. I mean, obviously, clearly, a lot of other people involved as well, but it is a passion project. I would kind of, I don't know if this is weird thing, so I would kind of love to see that film with some more budget. Like, if they could, like, thing is, it needs her, so obviously she'd need to do it quite quickly to still do that convincing shift, but it deserves a bit more money. Like, the story was just really well told. I know what you mean. I think this is such a great example. It doesn't necessarily need money because they've produced it so well. Clearly with a low budget, but I know what you mean. It would be great to have financial backing because it's such a good story, and it felt like everything teed up nicely. Everything made sense. Everything was like, oh yeah, now I understand why that was happening. Or sometimes with twists, you're like, I don't quite buy that. Like, that wouldn't have happened that way, or that wouldn't have played out like the way it did. It actually made me smile as well because it is a thriller, but like I say, there were comedy elements. I didn't think the ending was funny, but it made me smile because it was cleverly wrapped up, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's nice!" And, like, all the people
all the good guys kind of won. Like it just had a really nice kind of a nice wrap up.
It was devilishly tongue in cheek, some of it as well.
Yeah, which that coupled with her kind of emotion and like her just ability to just look so crushed and so devastated, and
not to say that the uncomfortable areas weren't dealt with tactfully, because they were. It was very tactful, I think.
And what I want to get across is like, this is a really good film. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's good for a low budget. Like, it was genuinely engaging. Like, I really, really, really liked it.
Yeah, me too.
Can I ask, Phil, I don't know this because we've sort of only briefly spoken. How did you find out? I don't know. You said that she kind of reached out to you. Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, she approached me on TikTok because I post a lot of Boys on Film stuff on TikTok. I've got other stuff going on there as well. It's not specifically Boys on Film profile, but she just reached out saying, would you be keen on reviewing it? And I thought it looked really interesting when I saw the synopsis and I saw that it had been on at Fright Fest. I was like, absolutely, yeah. And I saw the trailer.
I was expecting a low budget horror film, which I thought, well, it's good for the fact that someone made that for so much money. Oh, well done them, but it's not great. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised. I'm so happy that I know about it now. So yeah, I'm really glad she did that.
I hope she gets support as well for forthcoming projects, and I hope she doesn't give up, working in the film industry, because I understand it's even tougher than it has been at the moment, specifically after, especially after, COVID and stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping she'll be like the new Rose Glass, like the one who did some more. She's just Love Lies Bleeding, and it's like I could see her now getting like a bit more money, or like give her a shot at just doing like a really good like made for TV thing or something, just with a bit of budget behind it. Because I really, I would love to see more from her. I think, quite excited to see if she does other things or acts. She could just become an actress and do that. So
star rating.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent. And like I say, it did surprise me. I always like to have that surprise because I'm quite cynical sometimes when I watch films.
Same. Yep.
So Charlotte, it is available. You watched it on Prime Video.
I did indeed. Yep,
and I think it is available to watch for free, isn't it? Because Prime Video, if you subscribe to Prime, you'll get that automatically, won't you?
It's on a number of different platforms, so I think it's easy to go and watch. And it's, I think, 90 minutes? It wasn't even that long.
Yeah, it's snappy, isn't it? It's not. It doesn't outstay its welcome at all.
Oh, absolutely not. I was constantly like fully into it, like wondering how it's going to sort of wrap up. So yeah, I definitely recommend it.
So it's also on Apple TV. You can get it on Tubi and Roku. I'd never actually heard of those two platforms. I just discovered those two, thanks to Georgia. So go and check it out. If you've seen it, maybe you've seen it at Fright Fest. Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget also, Dan, this man, very talented man, is over on Nancy Boys UK, which you can check out. Fantastic horror channel, if horror is your thing specifically, just horror. I mean, we do mainly horror, but...
We do. Yeah. It's kind of my thing. It's all I watch these days.
Good to see you, Dan. See you next time.
Thanks, Phil. See you soon.